Colin Pitchfork's first victim was murdered near here. What Colin had done is he'd stood underneath this street light here in front of us because he was a well-known flasher, and he'd stood there to flash at a young girl that was going to walk past. This was back in November 1983. Now what you have to remember is, you see the houses there, these houses do not exist. So the young lady was walking from Enderby down the road, and she was heading back home in Narborough. So she was coming down the road there. Now when he flashed to her, he expected her to turn tails and run back the way she'd come. But what she did was she ran past him and she cut off his escape route. She ran down here and she turned down onto this lane, down onto what they call round here the black pad. Now Colin, realising he's got problems and that she would see his car, which was parked at the end of this the black pad, grabbed hold of her. He dragged her through. This used to be just a gate. This was not how it is now. This was just a gate back in the day. So the young lady was found there. Now I've come over the other side of this fence. This fence wasn't here. And over there, where you can see just in the distance, you can see a building. That used to be, it used to be a mental institute. It used to be called Narborough Nuts House. So at first, when the first victim was found, people speculated that one of the inmates had got out and perhaps murdered her. As we walked down the black pad towards the scene of the second murder, I'll just explain a little bit. Colin Pitchfork became famous because his murders and the capture of him were done for the first time with the discovery of DNA. So at Leicester University, they discovered DNA and they used it to actually catch Colin Pitchfork. Now, the reason there was 3 years between his first victim and his second victim was because there was so many false informations about who had done it, where they'd done it. You had Narborough Nuts House over on the left, and they were going through the inmates. You know, and at the time, Colin Pitchfork didn't live. At the time of the first murder, Colin Pitchfork actually didn't live in this area. He moved here between the first murder and the second murder. So he wasn't a local, so he wasn't a person of interest to the police. So that's why he got away with it for 3 years before his second murder. Now, after his second murder, there was a big gap between then and the time of him actually being caught. And the reason for that is because when he was requested by the police, as everybody in the age bracket was, to go to Enderby and give a blood sample, Colin Pitchfork, knowing that he would get caught, put it off. Then when his wife challenged him and said, look, you know, you've got to go, why are you not going? And she started to get suspicious. He actually asked his mate at work to take the blood in, as it was called at the time, for him. Now his mate, being not with a big IQ and a bit of a simpleton, agreed to do it for him. So Colin took him down, changed his passport, because you had to take ID back in the day. So he put the bloke's photo in his passport and took him down, and the bloke went and had the blood in for Colin Pitchfork. Well, Colin thought he'd got away with it until, I don't know how long later it was, but the lad was sitting in a pub in Leicester, and he happened to mention to somebody that he took the blood in for Colin Pitchfork. Now this lady overheard him, and she straight away called the police. The police arrested the man. The man admitted what he'd done. They then arrested Colin Pitchfork. They did another blood in on him, and the DNA come back completely positive for both murders. And that's how they caught him. And he was the first person in the world to be caught and convicted on DNA. The second murder took place in July 1986. The young lady had been down to see her friend down in Narborough, which is in that direction. She'd crossed this road heading back to Enderby, which was up here. Now, what you have to remember is back in 1986, this wasn't how it is now. This was just a dirt track, and it was a shortcut through to Enderby. So she walked up here. Now, it was about 5:30 at night. The sun was still shining, it was still daylight. There was none of these street lights that you can see here now. None of these lights was here. It was daylight, and Colin Pitchfork had followed her across the road, and he watched her come up here, and he followed her up here. Now, if you use your imagination, you can hear the motorway in the background, the M1, which is the main road from Leeds to London. Now, if you can imagine that this was all overgrown, this tarmac was not here, it was just a dirt track, but it was used a lot by people taking shortcuts back to Enderby, and also for people walking their dogs. And like I say, it was 5:30 in the afternoon in the middle of July, so the girl felt safe walking this way. Now, what happened next is purely speculation. Nobody actually knows fact of what happened next, but just here at this gateway, her body was found in this field. Found just about where you see where that black bag is there. So she became Colin Pitchfork's second and final victim. And this is the quiet village of Narborough as it is now, with the lockdown and everything. So just down here is where Pitchfork lived and where the train station is. He lived in Littlethorpe, which is the other side of the train station. Narborough train station. Now, obviously this has changed with the lockdown and everything, but we can go up onto the platform. And this is the Sleepy Village and the village train station. So you can catch a train from here anywhere. There's a signal box up there. So this is the quiet village of Littlethorpe, and just here, as we walk towards it with the sun blaring in my face, is the road that Colin Pitchfork lived on, which is Haybarn Close. What an apt name for a bloke of Colin Pitchfork. So Colin Pitchfork lived here, just there, and this is what this area looked like. And he lived up there, up that road there. So opposite was all the trees and the birds and everything.